Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to tell you all you need to know about Steve Cutler's WWE release, including a bunch of different backstage details.
Plus, could we see more WWE roster releases?
We'll cover all the important stuff from WWE's year-end financial reports.
And WWE allegedly want to rush an NXT Stars call-up. I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Okay, so last night, Steve Cutler got released by WWE. It was while I was asleep, so I didn't catch up on this until the morning. But it sounds like the news caught him by surprise. He got the full Future Endeavours treatment. Obviously, this going down 2 days after Lars Sullivan was cut. But Cutler got the message from the company on the website, on Twitter, everywhere else. But it caught him by surprise. He tweeted the following after the story broke. Unfortunately, today I was released. It was shocking to say the least. But I'm excited about the future and all the possibilities in front of me. Thanks for your continued support. 90 days, the countdown begins. Obviously, that would be his no-compete clause, his non-compete. I always get that mixed up. We got a report here from Fightful Select on the matter, and there's all kinds of little bits and pieces in here. Basically, even though WWE were the ones who, released him, let him go, made this move, they are leaving the door open for a future return at some point down the line, which is, I guess, I would say good. Right?
The bare minimum, I'd say.
Yeah, that's the phrase I'm looking for. They still cut the guy. It is what it is. There's also talk that Cutler actually had heat with Vince McMahon personally after testing positive for COVID-19 in January, which, this is a health crisis on the go. People are going to test positive. This stuff's going to happen. Seems like a strange thing to be upset about. More details here. Apparently, Cutler and his tag team partner Wesley Blake had a lot of sympathy. A lot of people in the locker room felt really sorry for him when Jackson Riker made that, boneheaded Twitter. We won't go into that. You know what happened. When that thing happened last year and Blake and Cutler were removed from television at the same time, they sat idle for 7 months. They didn't come back until December alongside Baron Corbin. There was a lot of sympathy for those guys because it was like, hey, you guys didn't do anything wrong, but you're kind of getting punished for him being an idiot. Poor guys. That whole situation really sucked for them. We said that on the video at the time that, these guys actually tried to distance themselves from that whole deal and they were still taken off. It sucked for them. It's a really crappy situation. Recently, Cutler had been at the Performance Center. He was actually taking bumps with the class of big lads who had to go back. The big boys, Keith Lee, Otis, Omos, all these people who went down to work on their in-ring. He was there taking bumps and he was apparently very well liked and popular while he was down there and getting along with people well, but now he's been cut. We don't know the specific reason. That hasn't been disclosed. It really does suck for the guy. He's had a crap year, this fella, professionally. From being removed from TV and then being cut loose now and all this stuff. On a human level, I feel really bad for him. And I hope that he's able to land on his feet in whatever he does next. Because it's just a crap situation, man. Not good.
Yeah, lots to unpack here. Like you say, I know that Vince McMahon has a history of getting angry at people for getting injured or being ill or whatever, but getting COVID during an ongoing global pandemic is very different from getting the sniffles because you went out in the rain or whatever. Obviously, like you say, just got to feel bad for the bloke. And let me just say as well, Andy and I and all of us here at WhatCulture are not advocating that, Jackson Riker should have been fired instead of Steve Cutler. They are two separate things. Cutler was punished for something stupid that Riker did, but I'm not saying that, if one of them's got to go, I'm going to pick that one. None of them should have been released. I've never been a big fan of the Forgotten Sons, if I'm perfectly honest. But that's not me saying, just because I'm not a fan of them, he couldn't have been repackaged into something else. Obviously, he did some stuff with King Corbin that got dropped pretty quickly. And like you say, regardless of whether or not WWE have got anything planned for him, again, releasing a wrestler amid an ongoing global pandemic as they did last year is just dreadful, and that sort of allows me to transition into my first story today with concerns with WWE personnel, according to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, that there could be more releases on the way. Now, two very different situations, as Andy alluded to, with Steve Cutler and Lars Sullivan, but the concerns now, that WWE could do what they did in April of last year and cut a whole host of more people. Now, traditionally, WWE, as Andy has spoken about on numerous occasions, do those wave of releases around WrestleMania time. But right now, it's a really bad situation to be in. I mean, the capitalist bastards that they are, they saved an estimated $32 million not paying those people last year. They still got insane profits, as we'll get onto in a second. And it's a different scenario. They used to do those WrestleMania releases, you know, that WrestleMania time, when there was no other real competition. Yes, there was, you know, Ring of Honor and TNA, but AEW is a completely different kettle of fish here. And like I said, releasing people when they can't just go, okay, well, I'm not working for WWE, but I can go and work my local indie show and you know, do 6 months doing that sort of. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. And the fact that there is fear amidst, as Andy will get into, huge profits yet again, just to save a bit of extra cash so they can show off to their shareholders. I thought we'd left this in 2020, I've got to be honest, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just run through the key numbers from these financial reports just to kind of outline this. So they had their Q4 2020 and year-end 2020 financials come out yesterday. They had the earnings call, the whole usual deal, the end of the day rather than in the morning, which is when they used to do it, but I digress. I'm not going to run through everything that was in them because we'd be here till, I don't know, 2024. But the key points here, right? The OIBDA, which is their preferred measure of profit, their preferred metric, up to a record of $286.2 million in profit for 2020. That is the highest ever. It's up 59% on the previous year. In 2021, they expect that figure to potentially be even higher, somewhere between 270 and 305 million. They had record net income as well, 131.8 million for the year. Record revenue, adjusted for inflation, comes out at 997 million. So it's always kind of goes back to the same thing with these releases, specifically at this time with everything that's going on in the world. And we've made this point before, but I don't think there's any argument against this now, really. Now that the numbers are concrete, now that they're there. People have been forecasting numbers like this for a long time, so we knew they were going to be there, but they're in plain written English now. WWE were, you know, they said at the time that by making these cuts in April, they were going to save $4 million a month, around that in salary. If you take that at face value and you extend that throughout the rest of the year across the 8 months, a saving of $32 million throughout the year. You chop that off, you still pay these people, and you're still making comfortably your highest profit ever. So I won't entertain arguments that they had to make these cuts. I won't entertain arguments that they had to release a guy like Steve Cutler on the same day as they announced these reports. Now, unless something else comes out about Steve Cutler's situation that, you know, maybe makes the situation a little bit more understandable. But on the surface level, it's just, it's bad optics, and it's disappointing to hear that the company, when they are doing so well business-wise, like these numbers are crazy, they're Scrooge McDuckin. It's just really rubbish to hear that people are worried for their jobs when the company's doing so well. It's horrible. I hate covering these stories, honestly. I hate, you know, a guy like Steve Cutler, done nothing wrong. Off you go, pal. We can't afford to keep you, but we're not going to. It just sucks, but we gotta do it. We gotta talk about it. We gotta hold these companies responsible for these things when they happen. Here we are.
Look, we get accused of bias all the time here at WhatCulture, but
both ways.
Exactly, and I don't want to get political here because I've really got to bite my tongue because I can go off on a real rant here. But I love WWE. If I didn't work doing this as a job, I still would have a network subscription. I still would probably watch every single pay-per-view they produce, and I still, for my sins, would probably still keep up to date with Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, for example. But my God, they make it hard to like them, and certainly almost impossible to defend them, as Andy said. I mean, let alone the fact they're going, oh, if we can skimp here, we can save $32 million, despite the fact we would still have record profits regardless. It's like, they didn't need to do that. And then you couple that with all the other dodgy, terrible stuff they do, whether it be the issues with unionisation and healthcare and what have you, to a whole multitude of other issues that we could get into. It's like, you know, I really like being able to get like next day delivery from Amazon. They're still a horrible company to try and defend.
Yeah, it's a sucky situation, but like, it's our job to sit here and kind of tell you what we think about these things and stuff, and that's what we do. Yeah, it just kind of wears me out a little bit. Poor Steve Cutler and all this. I'm sure he's going to be fine. He seems to have a very positive outlook on everything, and I'm sure he'll find other work eventually. It's just, I don't know, man. We had the situation, AEW cut people in the middle of this as well last year. Sadie Gibbs and BP. Jimmy Havoc was a different situation, but just sucks that these things are happening. We can't comment too much on AEW's position there because we don't know their financials. They're not a public company. They don't release those reports. But WWE, we know, are ridiculously rich. They're filthy rich. They didn't need to do any of this. And it really sucks that they did.
Anyway, Andy and I will get down off our soapboxes now and finally conclude by talking about the NXT star that WWE are desperate to rush up to the supposed main roster. This being reported by Wrestling Observer Radio. The person, Karrion Kross, which does seem to make a lot of sense when you look at him, and certainly the presentation of him in NXT seems like a mega star down there. Basically, it seems like there is going to be this ongoing battle between WWE, who Vince McMahon's seen a shiny new muscly thing and desperately wants that for his red or blue brands, and presumably Trips and the rest of NXT are like, no, we need to keep this guy here for now. And there's also, in my opinion, he should stay in NXT for the time being. There's also not necessarily a redemption arc, but certainly a story to tell about the man who never lost the NXT Championship, winning it back. And as much as there's been iffy, let's say, storylines in NXT, certainly recently, like, there's potential there for a mouth-watering series of matches between Balor and Kross, and then potentially the demon Finn Balor and Karrion Kross.
Yeah, I think with Kross, it's interesting because I think he'd be a good fit on the main roster.
Oh, yeah.
You look at his style and his character and his big and his bombastic and all this stuff. Although I think the worry with him on the main roster at the moment would probably be because he's kind of supernatural already, right? Like he had the fireball, and he's not like the new 1,000-year-old Chinese thing that's going on. Qian Xia, that's it, with Xia Li and Boa. It's not like that, but if he went to Raw, for example, and he was hanging out with Bray Wyatt, I think he'd probably be a flying astronaut zombie wizard within a few months. So I'd be a little bit worried in that regard. But I do think he'd fit in well. He's not a guy I'm worried about at all long-term in WWE. I do think, however, that most fans would find it most gratifying if he stayed in NXT for a while.
And if I was him, I'd look at the path of someone else who had such a big aura around them in NXT and was a former NXT champion. Look where Aleister Black is right now, and that's not his fault, I would like to point out. And as we said yesterday, Karrion Kross is not the next Undertaker. He maybe could have elements of being the next Brock Lesnar, but he should be the first Karrion Kross. And also my big concern, Andy, is the fact that Randy Orton's like, I want to have a match with him. And I was like, oh no, please don't do that. I mean, yes, he was great at, putting Keith Lee over. But my concern is everyone goes, great, Karrion Kross on the main roster. Oh, that was a really boring match with Randy Orton. But anyway, let's move on to your Twitter questions. Speaking of Karrion Kross, at WhatCulture WWE, if you want to get in touch with us. Christian Hilton starts us off saying, good morning, guys. Morning, Christian. Do you think there is a way to make Karrion Kross a bigger threat by giving him a new finisher? I think he would make a full Nelson chokeslam look devastating. What do you think?
Yeah, a big empower? What am I on about? A big, powerful impact, boom, throw you a mile across the ring and hit the mat really hard kind of move. I think would suit him stylistically really well. So I think it's a good move. I think your specific move is a good idea, and I can definitely see him implementing that at some point.
Yeah, we could well see that. Although I do just enjoy him Saito suplexing people left, right, and centre. It's what Andy and I and many of us others here at WhatCulture next stuff like that, yeah. But I would not be surprised if when he moves to the main roster they give him some wild new finisher. Good suggestion there, Christian. Next question today comes from Wooden Head on Twitter, who says,
hello, Trevor.
Do you think Darby should do a heel turn on Sting eventually? I think that could be awesome. He is stealing a little bit of his limelight, possibly, Andy.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, this angle at the moment. Personally, I'm not all that into it. I kind of feel like it's undermining Darby a little bit now rather than giving him the rub. That might change, but it's kind of where it's at just now. I could see them doing that. I think I think they'll keep Darby as a babyface for a while, at least until crowds come back, because the guy is really over, right? Even in these empty arenas, he gets really big pops, and I think they will ride that wave for a while. But maybe if it starts running out of steam, I think turning on Sting's a really good way to do it, because Sting's 61, and he's like instantly sympathetic, and he's like one of the greatest baby faces historically ever. So yeah, I think that makes sense. I do think it would be quite a while before we saw something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's one of the golden boys of AEW right now. It'd be like trying to turn Orange Cassidy heel. So I wouldn't suggest we're going to see it anytime soon. And hopefully, yes, off the back of this street fight that's coming at Revolution, we may well reap the rewards of something like this. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but yeah, you could easily see Darby turning by saying, I'm not the next Sting, I'm the first Darby Allin, because he's bonkers and he likes jumping off stuff. Final question comes from Gary David Watts, who says, how long until WWE have an NXT superstar win the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, I thought they were going to do it this year. I honestly thought they were going to do it this year with Rhea Ripley, even though I guess she technically left. Yeah. Sort of, kind of, but not quite officially. I honestly thought they were going to do it this year, but I think that they put Bianca Belair over this year is a really good sign that it might be coming soon, because Bianca had been on the main roster for like 8-9 months at the time of her Royal Rumble win. But at the same time, it's not like she was a strong presence until like the past couple of months when she's been working with Bayley and stuff, and it's been great. So I do think we're kind of nudging closer to that. She's, Bianca is still relatively fresh. She feels relatively fresh out of NXT, which is crazy for how long she's been on the main roster now. But I think we're nudging towards it. I do feel like we're still a couple of years away from it, though. Yeah. So, I mean, your man Karrion Kross would probably be a great pick for that role, and a likely pick. So, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years.
I've never got a prediction wrong, as we know, Andy. So I'm going to say within the next 5 years, you will see an NXT superstar. And by that, we mean, they have to be on NXT and shock appearance in the Royal Rumble, not someone like Rhea or Bianca who just quietly transitions to the main roster and then just appear in the Rumble. I think, in the next 5 years, we will definitely see it. And like I say, maybe Karrion Kross if they can hold on to him till next January. Let's move on to today's and finally, and I love the bloody Hurricane. Hurricane Helms at ShaneHelms.com on Twitter. He's a lovely bloke. He's one of the nicest people I've ever interviewed. And he just gets it. A lot of talk yesterday, of course, when that story broke last night, in fact, regarding Tyler X transitioning to become a woman. A lot of reaction to this. And I'm just going to read what the Hurricane tweeted, because people who were responding to the story, someone tweeted, I am stunned. And Hurricane Helms, Shane Helms just tweeted, why? It has no effect on your life. And that is the long and short of how we should deal with Tyler X transitioning to become a woman, Andy.
Congratulations on your transition, Gabby. Bold move. Very, very happy for you. And, situations like this are always going to bring out the worst in some people. So well said, Hurricane. If it doesn't affect you, shut up.
Exactly.
Shut up. Support people and shut up. That's how you do it.
Any other issues? Andy is a big advocate of this. The mute button on Twitter is not to be disregarded. Let us know your thoughts on that and everything we've discussed in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Got the SmackDown preview coming later. And of course, WrestleCulture with a bloody good quiz. You can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter as well, of course, at WhatCulture WWE. And watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at...
You can follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for, oh boy! That was an opinionated news video today, but also happy weekend. Hope you're up to something cool. I'm having a party with like Satan and stuff, so I'm sure mine will be fun. He can't get COVID, so it's fine.
We did go a bit of a rant today. Apologies for that. The H for me stands for thank you to Jasmine, who fingers crossed will be sending someone out to fix my boiler today. Apologies for my appearance this week on the news. Can't be helped. I mean, it can be helped generally, but just the more bedraggled.
I was going to say, apologies for my appearance all the time.
Follow me on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. No, that's all of us. Follow me at Adam Wilborn at WhatCulture WWE. As Andy said, have a great weekend. But my thanks to Andy, to you for watching, and we will see you soon.
Oh, this was a good one.
Yeah.